And we're back talking about places that you can and cannot wear a cowboy hat. Comment below a place you can't wear a cowboy hat.
Scuba diving.
Today, we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. Making some pancakes on air.
Pancake breakfast. Do you
I'm
mind
hungry.
Ross is going to make coffee 2 ways on air.
We should get some peanut butter. Do you guys like peanut butter on your pancakes?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll go get it.
And lastly, the meat and potatoes. We're going to be talking about how much it costs to start a coffee shop in 2023.
The answer will shock you.
You might be surprised, so stay tuned. And then at the end of this show, we're going to ask you a question for next week's episode.
Little
My radio
interaction.
voice can only go so far before I lose it.
It went pretty far. It went a lot farther than I thought, and I wish that was just your voice. No offense.
While Ethan's gone to get the peanut butter, Ross, what you got going on over there?
Well, this is our third little installment segment, if you will, of where I make a pour over on air for us to share. And we thought it would be fun to compare a brand new piece of technology.
So brand new.
A thing with wires on the end of it. A WDT.
Do you know what those needles are?
What do you mean?
Do you know what those needles are? Like
No.
what they actually are?
Made of? Why don't you just tell me what's on your mind?
Do you know
baby?
what the intended purpose of those needles are? Do you want to take a guess?
These?
Yes.
Is this not a coffee thing?
It is a coffee thing, but those needles are not a coffee thing.
Okay. Oof. I don't know.
You got a guess?
Like what they're originally designed for?
Yeah.
Is it something related to audio and video?
No.
Nope. I don't know. Pizza.
Acupuncture. Those are acupuncture needles.
Are you serious?
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh.
Wow.
I'm floored.
They just literally the entire cost associated with that tool is just the base, and then they just send you a pack of acupuncture needles.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm floored. So
Yeah.
I could
You could acupuncture yourself.
should I?
That thing is dangerous. There's no doubt about it.
It doesn't seem sharp enough to acupuncture my epidermis.
Because you're just stabbing several of them towards yourself. I think if you really were intentional about one of them, you could do it.
Words to live by. Yeah. But I have 2 different pour overs. They are ground on the same grind setting on our EK43.
As Ethan sprays the cooking spray onto the griddle.
I didn't know you were a canola man.
Dude, mind your own business.
Yeah, you do your segment, he'll do his.
Yeah, you do your
Okay.
thing. Let me do mine, all right?
Okay, so Riley talked about this on his solo podcast, the WDT podcast.
Linked above, of course, and below, and everywhere.
Affiliate links in the show notes.
You can listen to that everywhere you find podcasts. But the idea, at least is what we're doing, is you kind of give the coffee bed, the grounds, a little whisk, would you say?
A stool.
With the acupuncture needles thing, and it breaks up all the clumps. Clumps are really bad for extraction because the clumps
Why?
Well, I was actually going to say that because they have a higher density than the rest of the coffee grounds. If the coffee grounds are clumped together, then they're likely going to stay clumped together, which makes it harder to extract. So this breaks up the clumps. And I think I'm also going to do it after the bloom because I already do that when I make a pour over. I do the bloom, I pour the bloom, and then I stir it for a second just to make sure it's fully bloomed. Y'all know what I mean? Do you guys ever do that?
You still talking? I'm kidding, Ross. Of course I stir the bloom. Are you crazy?
I also stir the bloom these days.
I don't know if someone ever even told me. I was like, I just know. Like, you just kind of know that you know that you know.
It's you know it or you don't.
Stir after the bloom.
So I did a 25-gram dose. This is our Ethiopia Gotiti Gedeb, which is about to go bye-bye.
Gotiti's going bye-bye.
Which is, sad, but it'll be fun to have something else in.
Awkward.
Yeah.
You're brewing the same coffee 2 different ways?
I'm brewing the same coffee with the WDT and without the WDT. Here it goes. Here's
And
the
you're
thing.
going to do wet WDT as well,
I
which
am.
is the science on that is a little bit newer, but it makes sense. It makes absolute
checks out.
sense.
There I go. I just WD did it.
WD
Did it.
did it.
This griddle's a little old.
Here we go.
Oh yeah.
I am so stimulated right now.
You're just watching the show, man.
I know. I'm sitting back.
Well,
Tell us about the college football championship, Riley.
I don't even want to talk about it. It's a dark day in my life.
it was really boring.
It was extremely boring. I guarantee you the viewership was all-time low.
I was thinking about that. Like, at what point did the viewership just absolutely tank?
I know I stopped watching before the half was even over.
Agreed.
I fell asleep before the half was over.
Yeah, so I just think college football, it shows the bad place that college football is in, that the two champions could perform in that, or the two supposed best teams would showcase that sort of a game. And it's all because of money and NIL and unlevel playing fields. So,
Ouch.
am I salty because I'm a Georgia Tech fan? Yes, I am.
Yeah, you're just mad because you're not in the championship.
But that is what it is.
Don't be mistaken. It is so hot in here because of Ethan's griddle. It really has a
really is.
a thermic kind of effect. on it.
Oi.
But
They're sticky. We got some sticky cakes, boys. I think it got too hot.
guys, I went to the Optimist this weekend.
No way.
Went on a little staycation with the wife. We did bring our 5-month-old. So that was that. But got to go to the Optimist.
What was it like?
You know what? I'm actually glad you asked, Ethan, because
Wow.
they did something that, like hospitality wise, was really, really smart, and I don't know why more people don't do it. Our reservation was for 8:15. I know, late birds.
Wow.
And so we got there at probably 8, and we are like, "Hey, we're a little early, but here's a reservation." They were like, "Great, just take a seat." You know how they have that little kind of area in the front,
What do they call it? The something bar?
the foyer, like the oyster bar.
Yeah, oyster bar.
And we sat there, and there was seemingly there was a server that was entirely dedicated to people that were waiting for their tables, which is such a, I feel like it would be an obvious thing, like, because I totally would love to get a drink from the bar while I wait, but I also don't want to go like be the guy that stands behind the people sitting at the bar and be like, "Hey, martini." So this person, like, pretty much as soon as we sat down, they were like, "Hey, do you want to order a drink while you wait?" And I was just taken aback by that. Have you guys ever experienced that before?
No.
I know. And Ethan, what about you, man?
It's not exactly that, Ross, but I would love to share an anecdote.
Stay golden. Is that what we're going to talk about?
I've never been to Stay Golden. What's that like?
I don't want to hijack your story time.
Oh,
Dang,
All
these
right.
pour overs they went well.
this is going really well. I was gonna say we all went to Kimball House that one time, and I realized on their menu when you order, they have a thing called a cocktail beer. So after you order your cocktail, which will take minutes to be made and served to you, you can order like a $3 or $2 cocktail beer, and it's like 6 ounces of draft beer served to you immediately to sip on while you wait. And I loved that.
Yeah, we've kind of used that a little bit with, I guess, like a line drip. Like while you're waiting in line, you can
Yeah.
get a little demi of drip.
And the one and only David Basilia did that for me when I last visited Sidetrack, and it left a mark for sure. I was
Yeah.
looking
That's
at the
awesome.
menu, and he just gave me a cup of drip.
That was the stay golden thing I was talking about. because I mean, Stay Golden is mostly a sit down. You know, you order at your food at the front and they bring it out to you from the kitchen vibe. But as soon as you open the door, there is a carafe of drip just sitting there and waiting for you with like some 4-ounce cups for you to drink drip while you are waiting in line.
It goes back to something that
Who wants peanut butter?
me.
I'll do peanut butter.
It goes back to something I read in Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. We've talked about this book a lot on the podcast. How at your restaurant or your hospitality establishment, you should have a sense of abundance and excess. As in, like, if you're a host, like, it's really, whenever you're hosted by someone, you want to feel like they've got it all and they're not like about to go under. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not taking from them. I'm talking about when you are hosted by someone at someone's house. And so, like,
You are, you aren't.
what?
Talking about being hosted at someone's house.
I'm talking about being hosted by someone at someone's house.
Okay, I see.
And that's the whole analogy, is like when people come to Valor or people come to your coffee shop or restaurant, you are the host of that interaction. Oh my gosh. Whipped cream and syrup. Let's go.
And peanut butter. And pancakes. And
Sprinkles?
you're a madman.
Oh, the whipped cream fell off. Man. Anyways, so it's the whole thing of like if you drop your plate of food on the ground, the good thing to do is just to like go get them another plate of food because there's a sense of abundance there. Yeah. And they're not like being nitpicky about Thank you so much, Ethan.
Yep.
But yeah, that there's just like, yeah, we've got drip for you. Just like don't worry about paying for it.
Something we could learn from that is how to, because I mean, at Stay Golden, obviously you're trying to pacify a group of people who are waiting in a line from being agitated that they are waiting in a line.
Speaking of agitation.
So, you know, I get that. I understand being, you know, frustration from waiting in a line. But from the business's side of things, a line is a really good thing. And a line might not be systemic of necessarily a problem. Because, I mean, you know, a lot of times we're clicking on all cylinders and our drink times and our ticket times are super short, but we just have a line because it's crazy busy. So we need to incorporate ways of making our guests feel better while they wait in a line on a busy Saturday.
Yeah.
Like handing out small things of drip. Or Ethan has this idea of like having a game show of the line where you walk out and you're like, all right, if you answer this question wrong, you have to move to the back of the line. If not, if you answer it right, you get a $10 gift card.
Well, when you've done all you can do to make the line itself move faster, then you kind of have to ask that question of how do you make the line experience better? But yeah, so anyways, back to the Optimist. We got our cocktail and we were waiting for the perfect amount of time it takes to finish a cocktail, which is like 1 minute. Just kidding. And the only clunky thing about that interaction usually is that you're like, okay, do I close out at the bar or are you just going to add it to my table? Mm-hmm. And this girl was just like so locked in. She brought us our cocktail and then she was like immediately brought us our check and was like, hey, you can close out now. Like we were just in her hands as opposed to like we're trying to find our way through this, you know, flow of service. She was the one that was like leading us through the experience. I was like, man, why don't more people do that?
Yeah. I feel like the only thing that could have, obviously that's great. The only thing that could have made it better is if they would have been like, oh yeah, and don't worry about it. It'll be added to your tab at your table.
That does sound better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand how that is maybe less advantageous for that server though. Mm-hmm. If they had a way to take care of her monetarily on the back end, maybe, but that sounds a little getting into like, you know how we talked about like the socialism vibes of like just raise the wage of all the baristas and don't pay them any tips, and how that's like kind of illegal at this point. Guys, remember how we talked about that?
What?
I guess you can't collect tips and not perfectly give it to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't be like,
You
oh,
have
we
to
just
tip
pay
out.
everybody $25 an hour, and we'll figure out if we need to pay people more or less than what was tipped.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to eat our pancakes so you don't have
Awesome.
to listen to this. And we'll be back after a word from our sponsor. Just kidding. We don't have any sponsors. We'll be right back. Full tummies. And we're back.
Full
And
tummies,
we're
happy
back.
hearts.
Did you guys taste any of this coffee?
No.
No. Do we need to WDT it?
Everything is done. Everything is as it should be.
As
And I am pretty sure that I know which one is which.
So we're tasting the white pitcher. Oh.
So yeah, taste the white pitcher.
Tastes like pancakes,
Peanut butter.
whipped cream, syrup. What was the crunchy bit? Was it just the sprinkles? There was nothing crunchy in the pancakes.
No, it was the crunchy peanut butter.
Peanut butter was crunchy.
There was a lot of texture.
Yeah.
That was an A+ breakfast.
Yeah, it was really good.
Ross told me that we had a surprise from Ethan this morning, and my guesses were, if you're listening, Kent,
Kent.
our friend Kent Sheridan. I just thought maybe he was like in town and stayed at Ethan's house or something.
That's an option.
Pretty good guess.
That's a great guess.
I don't know why he would stay at your house and not like with his parents, but
Hey.
you never know.
We got a basement apartment, dude.
Yeah. So that was my first guess. My second guess was breakfast. And my third guess was Ross was pulling my leg and there wasn't a surprise and Ethan was just late.
I thought didn't you have a fourth one?
And then I said Ethan's dad, Randy. Randy, I know you're listening, so thank you.
I'm pretty glad it was breakfast, even though Kent or Randy would have been awesome.
True.
Okay, now you guys taste this, and that's the B.
Oh my gosh.
Granted, the coffee was roasted less than 24 hours ago. So
This one's better.
you think that one's better?
Yeah.
What about you, Ethan?
Let me make sure your mug tastes the same as mine.
Yeah. Same.
Let me taste yours.
I don't know.
Can I taste that?
Good radio, boys. I'm just taking this very seriously, you know?
If you're just driving down the road, just like close your eyes
And taste the two.
and imagine it with us. Just
Yeah.
definitely close your eyes. Just
Don't
kidding.
close your
Don't
eyes.
close your eyes. Valor's not responsible if you get into a car accident.
This one is better. I agree. And this one was no WDT.
What?
What?
Yep.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think the way you brewed the WDT one was kind of sketchy.
Why?
It was in an origami, a small origami, and you brewed a ton of coffee.
Okay.
We're really going to do this on air, guys.
And
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
if I'm being real, I don't like the way you pour towards the end of your brews.
Just like in the middle.
Yeah.
Why not?
I just think that could lead to some issues with pressure hitting the center of the bed.
That's fair.
You offer a lot of bed pressure. You understand?
That's fair. I mean, the reason I do it. Oh, whoops! I just broke this. Just kidding. Is to prevent clogging, but that could also promote channeling.
I think when you're doing something like if you grind correctly and you're using a WDT tool,
Yeah.
you probably don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for calling me out, and I'll change everything about who I am to make you
To
happier.
appease me,
Yeah.
to your chagrin.
To my chagrin.
So this is WDT 40?
That is WDT 40. Yes.
All right. I preferred this one
Then why did you just go with the majority?
because I'm scared. I'm scared.
Just for radio's sake,
yeah, I was like, yeah.
make it seem like we're always calibrated and we
That
never
is-
fight.
I wish I had 2 mugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's this one. All right, Riley, bail us out of this, man.
Yeah, we got to keep this moving. So today,
Wait, I could say something real quick.
okay,
Before you get to that,
great.
we are thinking about launching a couple segments on this program. One of them is calling someone in the coffee industry, whether that be a wholesale partner or just a random cafe owner or roaster, anyone in the industry.
Barista, celebrity, coffee celebrity.
Coffee celebs would probably be at the top of the list, yeah.
We're just going to call James Hoffman
Until
every
he picks up.
time.
Yep, great idea. And it would be a brief segment where we ask them 2 questions. And it would be awesome if you're listening, if you have any ideas for that. Like if you have anything you're curious about the industry that you would want to ask someone who is not in your position or someone who is in your position, just in a different state or city, that'd be awesome if you could comment with any ideas on what those questions would be. It'd be awesome if it was sort of audience sourced, the ideas. So that sounds like a pretty exciting thing to me. I don't know. What about you guys?
I'm excited.
I think we'll call the segment "We the People."
Yeah, we could kind of do like an America kind of thing.
Very American.
Genius. Meat and potatoes.
Let's eat.
and potatoes.
Let's eat. Get out your forks and knives
And your WDTs.
and your ketchup because this is going to be kind of dry.
You need some A1 and some Worcestershire too.
Just kidding. This is going to be
A1.
real juicy. So Ross.
Yeah. Tell me.
This is our segment, Ask Ross.
Yeah.
It seems, I see you. I see you. I walk in.
I feel seen.
I walk into HQ and you're just chatting with someone that I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And then, you're like, this is my employee Riley. You say like something stupid like that and it like confuses everyone.
This is my assistant.
And I'm like, hey, and then I go into my office and I shut the door.
Yeah.
And I work.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want to meet the person. I'm
Right.
sure they're lovely.
And you look at TikToks.
Yeah. It's just like I've got TikTok to look at. And then afterwards I'm like, what's up? And you're like, oh, they wanted to start a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Wanted to start a coffee shop.
Before my conversation with them.
Yes. And I want you to press in to that and tell me more.
Yeah. Well, that's really one of my favorite parts of my job is when I get to do that. And I know we're kind of,
Crush dreams.
yeah, we're kind of,
Just kidding.
we're kind of talking tongue in cheek about it. But,
What?
I like,
Is it tongue and cheek or
Tongue
tongue
in.
in cheek?
It's like this. It's like,
We're kind of talking tongue and cheek here.
tongue and cheek. Is it really tongue in cheek?
yes.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well, I'm glad I could learn that in front of our millions of listeners.
Busted. Exposed.
Anyways, and we're talking about it tongue in cheek, in the sense that somebody
To your
comes
chagrin.
to me to my chagrin. Can we have our producer Google chagrin real quick? Thank you. So people come and they want to start a coffee shop.
Distress or embarrassment at having failed or been humiliated.
Well, I'm chagrin. Color me chagrined.
Okay, this is stupid. Keep going.
And I talk to them and try to give them as much context and knowledge that I know, having started one coffee shop, helped people start other coffee shops, and having started, like, we're currently, opening another coffee shop. And one of the things that we inevitably talk about, and it's always at the end of the conversation, like we always talk about all the fun stuff first, like what the vision is. And I think that's important because if you just start with the hard stuff, for some people that can be really discouraging and deflating. So
Got to start with why.
got to start with why. Why are you doing this? What's propelling you to start this in the first place? What kind of place do you want it to be in your dream scenario?
It's really good for you as the deliverer of bad news to be able to gather that information first. So
Yeah.
you can be like, hey, you have this awesome mission. Figure out a way to make it happen, even though it might be harder than you once thought.
Yep. Absolutely. And the bad news we're alluding to is how much it costs to start a coffee shop. And namely the inflation of that number over the last 3 years or so, with COVID. And I guess maybe most of it is COVID related, just like how that changed the landscape of our nation and the world so much. But really what we're trying to highlight here is we're a really apt case study for this because we opened a cafe, was it in 2019?
Yep.
August of 2019. And so we were going through all of the pricing for that cafe at the beginning of 2019, right? Like in January, February.
Yeesh.
And so we were shopping, doing all the things that you do whenever you're making real moves on a cafe. You're looking at location and rent. You're looking at how much your architect is going to cost. You're looking at you're having general contractors put in bids for the job after the architect does the plans, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can get like a little something to work off of from the architect earlier, but it really is once the plans are done and beginning to be permitted that you can see what exactly everything needs to get done.
Yeah. So beginning of 2019, we were in that process of shopping around, and we were in the place that most people that I talk to are, financially speaking, when they start a coffee shop, which is that they have a great vision. They're trying to figure out how much this is going to cost. They maybe have some personal finances that they're looking to fund, their project with, or they have an investor, or they have a bank loan. It's often hard for people to get bank loans with their first business. So I generally see less people going that route because of your history as a business is basically non-existent. But we were doing that in the beginning of 2019, shopping around, and now at the end of 2022, or maybe in the middle of 2022, was when we were looking like kind of in the same place we were at the beginning of 2019, right? With our second cafe. We're shopping around looking for architects, general contractors, and we were just astonished by the prices that we got back. I think we had an idea that they were going to be more expensive. Everything was. We had some projections, but how surprised were you guys with the contrast of those two situations over the span of 3 years?
Very.
Very surprised, yeah.
Especially considering like one of our line items for Dunwoody would equal our entire build-out construction for 44 Milton.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other kind of piece of context here is that these are by no means elaborate build-outs whatsoever.
No.
The only thing we really did, I think we'll maybe talk about like our scope of work a little bit later of, what our budget was and what we were trying to accomplish. But the scope of work was very minimal. It was just, did we pay our general contractor for demo on the first one?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a small item, right? Like $1,000 or something like that. I probably have it right here.
Yeah, check it out.
Well, even that is crazy that we paid them for demo and it was still like way, 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 way less.
First of all, our first one he was not good. He was not a good general contractor.
Well, that just wasn't his expertise.
He included framing within his demo quote. It was demo/framing.
Interesting.
Whoa.
Which are opposites. And it was $3,325 for demo and framing.
Yeah.
Whoa.
For framing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And you said scope of work. Just to clarify, that's just what they're doing.
I'm getting
Yeah.
sad.
So, like,
just looking at this.
the general contractor's scope of work is what they are going to do to finish the space. We have our scope of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of that, I think this is maybe a point of interest for some people where one of the most popular things that people do whenever they're location scouting is they drive by this cool rundown building, and they're like, that would be a sick coffee shop. Have you guys experienced this phenomenon? Like, you hear people pitching that to you for future Valors, or you've done that yourself, where you
How many
look
people
at,
have you heard? I've always wanted to open a coffee shop. Like, it's everyone's dream.
yeah, and they want to do it in like that building, whatever that building is, and they always. This is maybe something else that could clarify. A lot of folks who are not in this industry or have never opened a shop always talk about buying the building. Always, like, not always, but like 9 times out of 10, I never hear people who have never like rented commercial real estate, or they've never started a business which is fine. They just somehow have this preconceived notion that we own our buildings, and like that's the thing you do.
That'd be great.
That'd be very ideal. That's like, maybe that's just because what like McDonald's and like Chick-fil-A, I'm pretty sure that's what they do. They just
buy their land. And
they buy the land, and then they just build the building. But that's not typically how you would roll. I think you would probably take that money that you would have spent on buying that property.
Invest in some other real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I was getting at there is, you're driving by this, kind of rundown, rustic, brick, whatever, fill in the blank building. You're like, coffee shop needs to be there. Oftentimes, those type of buildings are like, it would be so hard to start a coffee shop there because you're starting from likely scratch. You're talking about like
a garage, that kind of vibe. It's
Yeah.
just like there's not any plumbing in there.
Right. Well, I've done that too, where like specifically garages and automotive garages.
We've even called people.
Right. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of spots in Atlanta where, they have like the bay doors where cars used to go through. It's like, man, a coffee shop would be sick there. And that is true. But think about like running a grease trap there, and, plumbing, and who knows what the electrical panels look like there. I don't know all the specifics of how that works because we've never really done that. So my point is that our first cafe was in a downtown area with a lot of existing infrastructure. And so that was probably another reason it was less expensive. And the scope of work didn't include, taking a space from zero to a functioning
Hero.
coffee shop. Yeah, 0 to hero. So anyways, that's a little bit of context around. I know the boy.
Ethan's over here looking at the spreadsheet, shaking his head.
Yeah, over what our budget was for the first one. But from here, I guess we could. Do you guys have anything else on your mind as far as like what people should expect going into something like this?
I think last note on what you just said, man, if you look at standalone buildings and you're like, this would be so cool.
Yeah.
Because it would be really cool. But like you said, if we just did one of those random garages and had to run a bunch of plumbing and stuff and really start from scratch, that would be like $1 million, I bet.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you'd be getting up there close to that number. And I mean, yeah, maybe if we ever open Cafe 11, 12, or 13 or something, we can talk about doing cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're talking to people who are wanting to open their first coffee shop with this pod. So I would say you probably want to look for situations where you have multiple tenants, a landlord, especially even maybe one who is willing to give you some money towards the build out. That's called TI, Tenant Improvement Allowance.
Because you're adding value to their space even after you leave.
Yeah, and another factor too is that we've probably talked about this on the program before, but oftentimes when you're dealing with a more corporate commercial real estate company, or is there another word for that? I mean, like the entity that we're working with to make it happen. It's just like commercial real estate, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know,
A property group.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a
developers.
developer. That's, yeah, you're kind of working with those players. They will often take the space, whatever condition it's in, and they will deliver it to you in a certain condition. And depending on what that, property group is like, or that commercial real estate person, they are gonna. There's no like set rule on what that condition is. There's not like a policy from the state government about like if you rent a space, you have to deliver it to the tenant in this condition. So that's all like negotiation and conversations. By and large, I think we found that larger entities, more corporate, big developers, they're going to have all of their terms set anyways because they do this all the time. Meaning when you approach whenever you approach a commercial real estate company that's really big, or they approach you, they already have their price per square foot locked in. They already have their TI. They already have their common area maintenance rate locked in. They already know like what the space is going to be delivered to the tenant in.
It's called white box, just for reference.
White boxing the space, yeah. So our first location was less white boxed.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Our general contractor did a lot of that, which is why we were talking about he included the demo and such things in the bid. Mm-hmm. But our second location
very
was
white boxed.
Hella white box. Yeah. Like they ran the stubs for plumbing even, right? Like
put in the grease trap.
They put in the grease trap.
Added a bathroom.
They
beefed up the electrical unit.
Tore down some walls.
Beefing up the electrical unit was probably no small
feat.
No small.
They added
feat.
a rooftop unit, AC unit too.
Right, and so
but we did all of that, and we are still spending a ludicrous amount of money.
Yep, it's wild.
So yeah, if you start from not having that, again, even with this space, we'd probably be getting up closer into the high hundreds of thousands, which is nuts.
Especially if you put together all of the valued work on the space,
Yes.
Whew. And this isn't saying that, the person we're working with is just really expensive. We received bids or quotes from all sorts of
3 or 4.
Dozens and dozens.
Guys. I remember we got our quotes in for our first cafe. Do you guys remember what the numbers were? I think we got 3 quotes. I remember one of them was $90,000.
And we were like,
what? That's terrible. We're not doing that.
For Alpharetta.
Yeah, for Alpharetta, first cafe. And the one we went with, I think it was around, was it like 60,000?
It probably ended out somewhere in the 50 or 60, but the first bid was like 40.
Yeah, and there's just to put even more context around it, there's a certain amount of work that you can get the general contractor to do that you're paying them and his subcontractors to do. And then there's work that you can do, which you just got to go to Home Depot and get your materials.
They even painted.
Yeah, they painted. And just to add on to that, if you have a general contractor who's willing to let you do work, they are in theory, or like in a sense, taking a liability if it was to be something that had to do with permitting.
Yeah.
So a lot of times general contractors will just let you do finishings because they can't do anything about that.
What would that include? Finishings?
Like tile work, like shelves, wood, that sort of stuff. Painting. Baseboards. Like those things. I mean, baseboards probably are a code thing if I had to guess, with like cracks on the ground or something. But if, those things you can do yourself. And we are doing a lot of that ourselves with the first one and with this one. So let's just run through equipment really quick and how that landscape has changed. I think we can hit it pretty fast. There have been incremental price increases with ceramics and plates and that sort of stuff. But the big thing with us between the first one and the second one is, with the first cafe, we disassembled our cart. And then we also found an espresso machine used for a crazy good deal. So we definitely
awesome.
bootstrapped what we had to do. So I mean, even just looking through these line items, and it's like espresso machine and its maintenance. Since we already owned our espresso machine, we spent like $4 times 1,000.
Ah,
We spent $4,000 to get it back up to speed. Plus, we spent like $1,000 on portafilters and stuff.
yeah, I needed new pumps.
Yeah. So, but anyways, that $4,000 line item from that cafe, let's just call it even, 4,000 plus 8,000. Let's call it $12,000 we spent at that one. This time, our line item for an espresso machine is $27,000. And that is skimping on our original plan. Because we had originally planned to do a 3-group mod bar setup right off the bat. But now, because of budget constraints, we're going to start with 2 and move up to 3 in the months following our open, especially as volume increases there. So, yeah, I mean, what?
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
We have talked about that.
Oh, cool. All right. Sorry, I didn't turn on my listening ears.
Yeah, so that line item will go up all the way closer to $38,000 or $40,000. So that
Unbelievable.
alone is almost what we spent on construction for Cafe One.
Yep.
So you got that, and then like I said, we disassembled our cart, so we already had a Malkonig Peak and a
EK43.
EK43 that we pulled from our cart and put on there. But I mean, that is something else we're having to buy this time. We're going to go with Anthems, so we're going to get 3 and spend around $3,000 on Anthems. We're going to get an EK, which is going to be about $2,600.
Prices have significantly gone up on all those as well.
Yes, they have.
Probably since your spreadsheet.
Yeah. We're spending about the same on the Curtis Brewer, about $3,200.
Thank you, Curtis.
Because it's a dual head, and we bought extra air pots.
AirPods ain't cheap.
And then I'm just kind of looking through here. And
You got filtration, which it usually puts you around 1,000 if you go with the pre-filter and 3-stage filtration, which is, I don't know if that's industry standard, but that's what we've done on our first cafe, our roastery, and the second.
Yes. And then on top of that, I mean, like our first cafe, we got a $2,600 ice maker. Our ice maker at this cafe cost $7,500.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have gone up, plus we had to increase capacity.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just like all of those things. I mean, one thing is it's just a bigger space. We have to get bigger stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a big chunk of the money. I saw, where did those go? I mean, another instance of bigger space was like the light fixtures in Cafe One were...
Yeah, you just literally have more space to
The
fill.
the light fixtures in Cafe One were $3,500. The light fixtures in Cafe Two are $10,000.
Yeah, man.
So I mean, it just kind of the list goes on. There's just everything is more expensive. Everything is bigger. So
And better.
if I'm going through this list, it's just like espresso machine, grinders, drip brewer, milk pitcher rinser, 3-compartment sink, hand sinks, mop sink, toaster oven, ice maker, POS, point of sale, gear. What's the Champion 130? Dishwasher, 2 stand-up fridges, under-counter
Fridge?
refrigerator, kegerator. And that's another thing. With the first one, we didn't start with a kegerator. We added some of that stuff as we went along. We tiled our backsplash after we opened. So, I mean, sure, we have increased that, those line items significantly.
Yeah.
But it just took, a long time. So, I mean, all the way down through your mugs, and ceramics, your plates, your knockbox, your trash cans, your towels, your merch that you're going to open with. All that stuff for us in Dunwoody, the equipment and the stuff behind the bar, $91,199.40.
In just equipment.
And that we're not even, I mean, that number is likely to go up even more as we keep buying miscellaneous stuff.
Because we just love buying stuff, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to the equipment list for Cafe One was $39,818.
That's a good little metric right there. If you're, we're saying a lot of numbers here, but we're kind of just seeing a tripling effect, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as all-in costs go. So,
I mean, it's double the space.
double the space. We're trying, and a big thing too is, and you hinted at it, is there's twofold. We're getting better and bigger equipment, or just more equipment for the surface area, because we're trying to have a higher production ceiling. Because as talked about in the first part of this time, is that we have a really busy cafe in Alpharetta and there's a line. So our biggest problem is like working through that line efficiently. So trying to preemptively design a space to treat that line, that's risky because we're investing,
Sure. Yeah. And
we're investors.
in one sense, yes, we are. I think it's just important to emphasize, like if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, well, the reason their second cafe is more expensive is because it's way bigger. Like, yeah, that's true. But I think as much as possible during this time today, we should, when there's an opportunity, be like, hey, this one was not because this was a bigger cafe,
Yeah.
And it's even fair to say that the scope of work was greater for our first cafe for the general contractor. Would you agree?
For the first cafe?
Yeah. Or at least equal.
Because of, so there was the tenant's side of the work. The tenant's contractor did some stuff that would make me say no because of the grease trap, the electrical panel, like some of that stuff. And then we obviously have central bars in our new cafe, like islands.
Yeah. They had to cut concrete for the first one too, though.
Yeah.
Like the boys did a lot on the first cafe.
And the work showed for how cheap it was.
Yes. One thing that I want to say, if you're trying to open your first cafe, is do what you have to do to get open.
Yes.
We definitely adopted that mentality. Riley, you just mentioned we didn't start with a kegerator fridge. We didn't have a tiled backsplash. It'd be interesting to just list all of the upgrades that we've made since being open. But the point is, do what you have to do, and don't do what you don't have to do to just get open.
Yeah.
Because and a very, very important caveat to that is if you're good enough. Like if you just do what you have to do to get open, but you haven't thought through your systems and you don't know where to put your espresso machine and you don't know where to put your grinders, you don't know the flow of service, then you might actually, that would be less beneficial for you, and you maybe shouldn't have opened and maybe figure that stuff out first.
Yeah, that's a really powerful word, because I'm sure we've seen a lot of bloated coffee shops that have the highest tech gear and like the coolest, bougiest build outs, but they don't match up with quality of service, quality of drink production, efficiency, culture. So this is one piece of the puzzle. So it's like, just figure out what you can work with and really dial that in.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes me think of a very, I won't name any names, but a very expensive build out where they have a very expensive machine, and then like 5 feet down the bar, they have their grinders, like their espresso grinders.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's just like that shows a knowledge of good equipment, but a lack of knowledge for efficiency.
Yep.
And then I went back there about a year ago, and their grinders are right beside their machine.
That's funny.
Well, and I think what we're really grateful for is having the cart, because we managed to be busier than a lot of cafes, honestly, in our area, off of a single group espresso machine, in a single gallon brewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we figured out how to maximize efficiency with what we had.
We're not saying to start a cart.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, then obviously, yeah.
If the shoe fits, kick it off.
But yes, that's probably not the. We're not going to call that the best path unless you just have an itch for doing that.
yeah.
But the main thing to take is just like figure out a way to make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I think that was what put us in a good position from the get at our first location, was that we had we were already just becoming Valor. We had a strong-ish culture. We had, the three of us that had been going for a while. And then we had 3 employees that we had been working with in different capacities because we didn't have that much opportunity for them in the cart days. But we had that, and then we thought so much about what our flow of service would be. Like, we would just sit down and just analyze every single possible thing that could happen.
It's probably a journal somewhere. It's just like all of that.
Yeah. And that was incredibly beneficial, not only for the flow of service, but also just for our relationship of having that problem solving and foresight to just think about every detail.
And the flow of service in Alpharetta is perfect.
Right.
Like there's not a single thing I would change about it.
Magnifique.
But I think that's my main point, is that we felt confident to do as little as possible with the build out and just get damn open, because we had put so much thought into the raw materials, like the organic kind of intangible aspects of the cafe, such as flow of service, such as culture, such as just good coffee, like good systems. Mm-hmm. So if you have those things, then just get open. If you don't have those things, then either get those things or find somebody that can help you get those things, and then just get open. But don't be paralyzed by comparison, comparing yourself to other cafes that have these amazing build outs and thinking we're not going to be successful if we don't have a build out that's comparable to this other successful cafe. If you're doing that to us, then please stop doing that, because we did not start with a good build out, and our build out is definitely not amazing still. It's really just a bar and some tile is really all that makes it look good, and some paint on the walls. That's kind
paint on the walls. Like, it looks really awesome.
Yeah.
And we remember people would, this always shocked, at least me, when we first opened. People were like, "Oh my gosh, this space is so cool."
Yeah.
And I'm like, we literally just we invested in $40 light bulbs so we could change the colors of stuff.
It was a smart move.
And it was like that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pro tip. Like, wall paint is cheap. Like, just paint a wall. It's cheaper than having these crazy build out elements. But
yeah, I just realized that I didn't include another sheet that was from Dunwoody towards that total that I just gave. So it's actually 40,000 versus about 150,000 for the equipment and bar and decor, we'll call it. Because I mean, like the first cafe, I wonder what we spent in tables.
You just don't need as much tables in
All
a
right.
small space.
Tables, chairs, and stools. Our budget for Cafe 1 was $3,500. Cafe number 2, we're going to have booths. We have bar stools. We have patio furniture. We didn't buy patio furniture.
we didn't
on the
buy
first one.
any patio furniture.
So our line item just for patio furniture, stools, and chairs was $17,000.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that looks like.
It is because we have insanely nice patio furniture.
Yeah.
Because we really, really like it. And then for booths, I have booths and tables, I have budgeted out like another $14,000.
Yep.
And I have no clue if that's even right.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, our point in this is not to just be like, oh, poor us. We're opening another cafe and it's just so expensive for us, but rather just to give you context of what maybe you don't go with booths. Maybe you don't buy patio furniture and save on that. But for us, we went into the second cafe thinking, hey, as much as possible, we want to do this one right. Like we don't want to have to constantly be renovating this second cafe in order for it to look good.
And in some ways, we're tying ourselves in for that not to be an option, like having plumbing and electrical run through the ground.
Yeah, right.
It's like what is set is set.
Yes. And, I think we're making good decisions. I feel pretty good about that. But, okay, so we talked about equipment. We talked about seating. How deep do we want to get into like the GC side of things?
We can probably brush up against it.
And then we could kind of give, we don't have to say our like final number that we think we're spending, but maybe we could just say, like, for the purpose of if somebody wants to open a 1,500 square foot cafe and keep it as skinny as possible, like what we would tell someone that was approaching us for wholesale, what we would project their overall budget being.
Yeah. And a 10-second recap of what you said was the first cafe for us was how can we do this as cheap as possible and get open? And for this cafe, it's like, how can we do it right, and get what we think will be best for Dunwoody right out of the gate. And it's not like that crazy either.
No, it's really not.
But so those numbers are just for like super budget, just doing a standard ops, good coffee shop. And then I'm sure there are many coffee shops beyond us that are doing million plus build outs that are absolutely wacky.
Yep.
And hats off to them.
Yeah. And they're probably doing some food too. A lot of those shops that, they have like biscuits or some more eggs, breakfasty kind of stuff, which we're completely not doing.
Yeah. So, if we just look at some of these numbers really quick, our HVAC number from Alpharetta was $3,000. Our HVAC number for Dunwoody is $28,000.
And let's just, as much as possible, talk about how those two are different,
Yeah, so better contractor, for sure. Like, no doubt about it. More thought that went into it. And then, it's just a way longer run of these vents.
They're just bigger.
Yeah, there's 2 units. That does not include any money for the units themselves, just to be clear. And then, inflation.
Yeah. Okay, so we're both losing our voices.
I know.
I remember having this thought with the first cafe when we got our general contractor bids, and it was like, why are these different?
Yeah.
Why are these numbers different? We had 3 numbers. Let's say one was 90,000, one was 70, and then the one we went with was 50 or 60. I just remember being like, how hard can it be? Let's just choose the cheapest one. And like they're going to hire subcontractors anyway to do all the work. Like, so I would be interested to hear y'all's thoughts, especially the two of you, because you have worked you've worked more closely with the GCs than I have. What makes a good general contractor? Why do you pay more for one of those?
I'll just quickly say, and then Ethan can take over because he talks to the general contractors more. Communication. Prioritization of our project
over all the other projects that they're probably doing.
Yeah, because you definitely pay. You pay for that for sure. Because when we get into paying this much for something, it's like if they weren't prioritizing us, they would probably hear an earful from us.
Yeah.
And then professionalism and just like general actual knowledge of what they're doing. But yeah, we're like this time, things can obviously change, but like our timeline is looking pretty good for what they promised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but I think the answer is you get what you pay for. You pay more, it's going to be a better and faster experience. And so even a more budget friendly option could be to get a more expensive general contractor based on what your lease is. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
if we're trying to open in a certain amount of time and we know a general contractor who is going to prioritize the project, maybe that seems like we're paying for that, or is just like smart enough to handle the project. Because you probably have, I don't want to rabbit trail this, but you probably have people that take too many jobs and they're like running around. But it seems like these guys like just took the project because they had the bandwidth. And so they're probably just as much prioritizing their other build outs. It's just they're all working like clockwork. You know?
Yeah, it's the funny thing about these like timelines is you might want to run some projections of yourself for your sales, because like say there's a bid between two contractors, one is $10,000 more but will get done however much earlier. Like you're going to get open and be able to start selling your product and making money. So it's
Paying
all
your rent.
It's all a wash anyways. And you see that with people where like if I wanted to build a garage on my property
At the house.
and it's like the permit is $200, but the fine, and you have to wait 2 months to get your permit, but the fine is $300. It's like, why wouldn't I just pay the $300 and not get the permit?
Are you speaking from experience?
Much to the government's chagrin,
Yeah.
of course.
Perpetually speaking. Also, a line item that you see with nicer or like higher quality general contracting groups is you pay for personnel. So these people have like project managers, but the person that we worked with the first time was just kind of a lone wolf, and so it was a lot more like, I don't know what's happening, I'm not being communicated to, no one's in the space, versus I have like 3 different people I can reach out to at any notice, and be like, what's going on?
I noticed that there was just so many more players, like that are just kind of checking in,
and that costs money.
Oh yeah,
but it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
just something to think about. But yeah, it's a big difference, man. And I think a good GC too. There's a lot of communication, and we're not done yet. So I think the real test is what does it look like to get across the finish line. But so far, so good.
Yep.
Well, I guess as a round, to round us out for the first cafe, I'll definitely give you guys that number. I mean, it was
$360.
It was $100,000 if you don't include the espresso machine. So let's just call it $110,000.
Yeah.
That sounds nice to some people's ears, huh?
Yeah.
If they're like, oh, I can open a coffee shop with $110,000.
It was about 1,000 square feet overall. Yeah. That's how big it was. Our second cafe is about 2,000 square feet, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're purchasing a good bit more. I mean, are we close to triple that?
Yeah, over triple.
We're over triple that number for our second cafe.
For sure. I mean, what do you want to call that? Like 33%. I'm just trying to think of like what equated to that number being so much higher. Let's just call it like 20% of it. No, 30% of it was just like we got some cooler stuff. Like we're gonna have booths,
and we had to pay,
tables.
and we had to pay for some stuff that we didn't have to pay for.
Yeah.
For our first one, like grinders and such.
Yep. And then the 20% of the extra cost is bigger space.
I'm
at 50%. 30% is probably inflation, honestly.
Yeah.
Between construction and equipment. What's that? 80%? What's the other 20%?
Well, I was going to say maybe say 40% for like GC/inflation, because those are pretty tight to the hip.
So what's the last 10%, guys?
Power of will.
Yes.
10% skill.
So with all that being said, okay, maybe we can ask this question. Do you guys think you could open a coffee shop for $150,000 in this climate?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How?
It'd just be stupid. You would just have to like, I mean, it's very contingent on the space you find. What's the amperage on your electrical panel?
The condition of the space before.
Yeah, do you have any plumb work? Basically, my thought was like, say it's just like got 250 amps, which is enough. We have 400 amps, and it's like barely enough with all the stuff we're getting. Flex. That's an amperage flex.
You're always flexing that.
Yeah. But really, it would just be like finding out where it is, framing it super simply, or even heck, doing like pseudo walls.
Getting your light fixtures on Amazon.
Shop on Amazon, and then like run your electrical and plumbing all on the same like wall and nowhere else.
Yeah, one of the first questions I would ask if somebody was like, "Can I do this for 150,000?" I would ask, "How handy are you?"
Yeah.
/ do you have time to work on this space and do some of the work yourself? Because if you don't, then you're gonna have to pay somebody else to.
Yeah. And how willing are you to compromise and like, work your way up from there?
Sure.
Because I mean, sure, someone could buy a Linear Mini and that's their espresso machine when they start.
Yeah.
Might not be the best decision,
Yeah.
but they could probably make it work until they can afford a 2-group machine.
I was literally imagining like tables instead of counters. Like you just get like stainless steel work tables and throw some FRP on the walls.
Yeah. Another thing, like for someone that's trying to go as skinny as possible, we talked about like, hey, just get open, but make sure you really think through some stuff so that the operation itself is humming. Along with that, I would emphasize, make sure if you're just trying to go as skinny as possible, invest your time and effort and expertise into marketing. Like have a great Instagram. It doesn't really cost you anything, except for time and maybe some intangible expenses. But if you're invest in that and then invest in good signage, because if that's just huge. Like we didn't really talk about it. All we did was with our first cafe, we had a sign painter paint Valor coffee like huge on our doorpost so that people driving by could see it. You don't have to get, unless you're in a shopping plaza and you have to get it, you don't have to get this like big light up sign that is, probably $10,000 at this
You're
point.
probably not open at night anyways.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So even if it's just, big painted letters or whatever, but if you're just trying to get open, invest as much as you can in these high impact, low budget things like marketing, Instagram, Facebook, and signage.
You know what's interesting about signage real quick? I know we're wrapping, but I've seen it, and we talk about doing this all the time, where if you have one opportunity to like make signage, so many coffee shops just put the word coffee instead of their name. And I know that that's smarter, but I just think it's kind of funny. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like kind of taking the L on their own brand.
We're not doing that this time.
I know.
I'm kind of nervous about it, honestly. But
we should be.
It'll work. It'll work out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, Ross?
What do you mean we're not doing it this time?
Coffee is not going to be on our building at all.
Oh, it just says Valor and Valor on the...
I don't even think it's going to say Valor on the front. I mean, we'll have the square sign. That might say coffee on it. It'll probably say Valor and then like coffee. Coffee and stuff.
Coffee and sundries.
Yes.
And mercantile.
And sunscreen.
Ethan, you promised that you had a question you wanted to ask people before next week.
Yeah, I got something to say. This is something I've been really thinking about for a long time, and I think I finally worked up the courage to ask it. And that something is, two-parter. What makes you really excited when you have a good experience at a coffee shop? What is it? What is that thing? Conversely, what bums you out? Like you say you've traveled far and wide to go to this beloved coffee shop and you have a disappointing experience. Why? We want to know, because that's literally our job, is trying to create a wonderful experience. And we'll probably next week be sharing some of our experiences that we've had in the coffee industry, and even at our own facility. And we want to hear from you about
Our facilities, like our bathroom.
Hey, maybe that's the bathroom that disappoints, some low-grade TP.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Just get 2-ply.
LGTB.
Dip up. But, man, it's good to be back in the stewed.
With the dudes.
The stewed and the dudes.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Drop those in the comments. Email us, info@valor.coffee. If you don't, then we just won't have any content for the show next week. So
We're just gonna
it's all up
sit
to
here.
you on whether you want whether you want the podcast next week.
Boys, I would be remiss if I didn't say this before we ended the program.
What is it?
Smash like.
We haven't said smash like this entire program.
Wow. That was a record.
What is wrong with us?
All right, boys.
They're playing us off.
Love you.